Evening. I'm going to call to order this first public work session of the board on next year's budget. Ms. Meeker, will you take the roll?
Yes, everybody be warned, this was a random listing of names. Ms. Robinson.
Here.
Ms. Boucher.
Here.
Ms. Campbell.
Here.
Ms. Hastings.
Here.
Ms. Walsh.
Here.
Mr. Richards.
Here.
Ms. Sadowski.
Here.
Ms. Higgins.
Here.
And I am here. We have a quorum.
Great, we are all here, and tonight is the superintendent and Mr. Dunn's show as they present their proposed budget for next year.
So thank you. It's a team approach, and our teammates are here. And this budget is in response to your goal to change up the way the budget was delivered, so that you would have all the materials that we thought was appropriate and that would be useful to you as you make those very, very difficult decisions about the expenditures in this community for our kids, right? So we did change it up. So it is we call this our 1.0 version, and so we hope tonight we'll learn a little bit more from you about what suggestions you might make, and as we move forward. But tonight we want to be able to present to you all aspects. This is meant to be an introduction of this and kind of a big picture overview. Think about it that way. There's plenty of opportunity over the next 6 weeks or so to ask pertinent questions, especially, more detailed questions, and we anticipate that, and we have that information for you. But tonight is really meant as the big picture and an overview, and will give you an idea of where you're at, and I think it will help you to make decisions. So this document has already been posted on the district website in anticipation of tonight, so that people are at home. I'm sure they were eager to participate and listen to this presentation tonight, and so they can follow along because it is posted, and appreciate it. And I especially appreciate the people sitting around the table. They have our team has been instrumental in developing this proposal. Kim and John, with their perspective, certainly curriculum and special services, and Michelle with all the personnel issues, and her folks in her department helping her. And Terry has been, as always, helping us to craft it and put it together in a way that had made sense, as some of us get scattered when we're doing these budgets. And Matthew and all his presentation around facilities and our buildings and the functions of that. And certainly our number guy sitting right next to me, that is so helpful in keeping us understanding the numbers and how they fall out. So again, I'm really pleased tonight to be able to submit this to you, and we're going to walk through it. And I remind you, as we do that this budget was built on your goals, your 6 goals in your strategic plan, including equity and curriculum and instruction assessment, as well as social emotional learning, communication, facilities, and certainly high priority is safety. So we tried to develop it around that. We also, before we really wanted to begin to talk about some of the areas, we really wanted to talk about some of the accomplishments of last year. You cannot go on and look at next year's budget without considering what you've accomplished this year. And so I listed that and I started on page 4 if you're kind of following along. Certainly the new math program implemented in K through 6, the new program that's implemented in the middle school in collaboration with the high school, open up to increase the participation of Algebra 1 by our students. We were pleased to expand the world language program at Runlet this year with the addition of another teacher, giving our 6th graders a chance to engage in the foreign languages that we offer. They got a taste of it in German and Spanish and Latin and French, and the feedback from our students, it was very well received. Some new things, that we did this year, and we felt this was really important. Our 9th graders all took the PSATs. So that kind of prepared them to get ready for the SATs, which they take in 11th grade, which, as you know, is part of the state assessment. But we gave them that opportunity. It gave them an idea how they did, but it also gave our teachers some data say, okay, how did they do in areas in the test? Let's take math. How did they do in the geometry, the algebra, all of the critical thinking that goes along with some of the test components of the PSAT. So they used it as a tool to help them with their instruction in identifying where the strengths and as well as the weaknesses. So we're really pleased to do that, and we'll continue that for our students. You'll see that in your budget. iReady assessments were also, we pushed those out a little bit more to grade 3 so that our teachers could use that in reading and math. So that was completed this year. Student attendance has improved. That was a big goal for everyone. So on page 5, you'll see that I listed every school and what their attendance. We are getting very close to pre-pandemic attendance rates. I'm really happy about that. You can see we're all up in the 90s, and I have to give a shout out to Abbott, Downing, and Broken Ground that are nearing 96%. And you just have to know that that's an important. We have to have the kids in school. They have to be there and participating. So that was important for our principals, and they did a great job. I will say that the lowest was Millbrook, but I think all of you know that when you have little kids, they their first couple of years of school come home with everything that is ever contagious, and so you all nodding your heads, but you know what that's like. I do too. And so you'll see Millbrook is just a little bit lower than everyone else, but we anticipate that. And you know that if the little one is sick at all, that mom or dad may be more likely to keep them home that extra day to hopefully they feel better. So that's part of that reason. We experienced a 5% growth in math and reading. We have our fingers crossed as we're looking at this year's growth, but last year we were very proud of a 5% growth. You saw the data. We presented it to you at a board meeting. I think we should all be proud of that. That took a lot of work around reviewing data, using those assessment tools to do that. And I think it was a significant accomplishment last year, and certainly with your support, because those funds allowed us to do that work. We're always, we've been so fortunate to access grants, and the 2 grants we got via Sampson and to be able to do the work around mental health has been really huge. We now have folks from Riverbend and NAMI coming to our school, delivering support to us youngsters who might not have been able to make an appointment at 6 o'clock at night at one of those agencies. So to be able to have that service in school, we're working with teachers. We're also doing the restorative practice work in the district, helping to train teachers around that. So those grants really allowed us, and they're 4 and 5 year grants, so they're going to be with us for a while. But certainly a huge accomplishment, and I always give kudos to our in-house millennial, Ellen Desmond, because she's our in-house millennial. That's best I can say. She's awesome. And of course, this year we added a preschool program over at Abbott Downing, filled right up, which was really great for the kids and the program. We've all been over there observing. I know John, all of us have been there, and it's really been a very positive for Abbott Downing, and it's a positive for the families that we can serve there. As you know, the numbers in preschool, and you'll see that later on, have really grown. Facilities maintenance and some of the big projects you had this year. Just think about putting in new air quality dehumidification projects at 2 of your schools, your older schools, if you will, Broken Ground and Beaver Meadow. Having new systems has been huge. That's a great accomplishment. And as we get ready to prepare for the high school, which will be this, obviously you know that will be done this starting this spring. Actually, they're already doing it right now. I'm looking over at Matthew. They are already planning that and drawing design and getting ready for that, so for that big project. As sometimes projects are slow to get started, but the Memorial Field project is at least on the agenda. It's being talked about. There's proposals on the board, and so I think kudos to you as a board to support that effort as we move forward. You participated in having an allocation for the original planning, which included the engineers and as they put together a plan. And I think that although we still have a long way to go, I think it's a positive for the community in that facility really needs some upgrades. And I think everybody is looking forward to it. We also, you also committed to working with the COMF and Combined Operation Maintenance Facility. Everybody asks, what does COMF mean? And that's what it means. Thank you, Matthew. And so you made a commitment to that, to upgrade the area so that we can have park our buses and have more room for that, as well as a place for our 3 new electric buses with charging stations. So because of that work and some of the changes that will be done up there, you'll have a proposal, but you made an initial contribution to that so that we could do the planning. So again, something that we move forward on. And certainly, last but not least, is your middle school project. It was a long process, but you need to know that I think the community is very pleased that you have made the decision to move forward to provide a facility that will meet the needs of our middle schoolers, all 800 of them, and the staff. I think the staff has been pretty clear with you how important this is and the great need for a new facility and all of that work. It was a giant step forward. You know, it's been hanging out there for a long time, pre-2017. And so in 2024, you stepped up and made that decision to move forward with the middle school, and I think that's an awesome accomplishment. So you did a lot, so I want you to keep that in mind as we move forward. I'm going to turn it to the numbers guy to give you a little update on the proposed budget tonight.
Okay. So this budget is proposed, general fund operating budget of $111,574,000. That's a 2.84% increase.
Check.
Oh, sorry.
Make sure the
Yep,
microphone's
usually I have it right in front of me. Sorry.
Why don't you start again?
Yep. So in this proposed budget, the general fund, we're proposing $111,574,863, or 2.84% over the current FY25 budget. I'll have a little caveat at the end of this. So as you can see, your approved budget for this year was $108,490,133. We're proposing the $111,574,000. So the estimated tax impact of this proposed budget is 62 cents per thousand, or 4.44%. That would take the local rate from $13.96 to $14.58. If you combine the state education tax, which is not changing from our projection at the moment, and obviously there's a lot of pending state legislation among other revenue items, it would be a 62-cent increase when you combine the two, or 3.99%, taking the total education tax from $15.53 to $16.15. Now, the increase, as I mentioned, was 2.84% in the expenditures. In that is expenditures, there's $2.45 million in offset that we're proposing to come from your trust funds for several reasons. One is the van proposal and the CDL, trying to mitigate and offset. You have to have the expense and the revenue side, so they mitigate. We're going to pull $1 million in from your health risk reserve to try to mitigate the impact of that, as well as plans and a couple other things that we're negotiating. And then $350,000 for some summer project work. So of the $700,000 that's proposed in this budget, $350 is general fund. The other $350 is one shot from the school building maintenance fund. And we have the balances in here for you as well, because they're, when your things are riding along pretty good, you put the money away. With the uncertainty at multiple levels, we propose this to try to give you a smooth way into the budget without increasing the taxes too much. So by using that, we bring those expenses down to $109,124,000, or 0.459% increase If you see that on the top of page 6. So that's the if you took it and offset it.
And does that change the tax rate?
No.
Why doesn't it? Or, so the tax rate you're showing us is with 109.
111 million.
What are we
Because
actually
I-
raising in taxes?
What the 111 million?
Okay.
Yeah.
But
Sorry.
if we bring it down to $109 million, it doesn't,
I have to appropriate the expense. So what I'm telling you is you're not taxing that other 2.4 million. It'd be higher than that if I didn't use your trust
that was my
funds.
question, is
Yes.
how much we're raising in taxes, 109.
Based off
million.
109, yeah.
And that's the increase.
Yeah.
So a 0.59% increase in our budget
For expenditures.
for expenditures translates to a 4.4% increase in the tax rate?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, you're going to see your overall expenditures are up 3 million,
Yeah.
right? And then you have the decrease in revenue. Revenues are basically somewhat flat. So,
So we will there will be more detail
Yeah.
to help you do that, but just, we wanted to be able to say, okay, this is where it's at, this, right now. You have lots of decisions to make, right? I said, I hope I made that clear at the beginning, but this is the proposal, and, you know, those numbers may change. But starting tonight, starting at ground zero, that's where we're at, okay? And, you know, we were very clear. You were clear at retreat. You wanted us to try to work towards a flat budget. I mean, that was clear to us. We've been bandying that about for a number of weeks, and we understand that. But we also know that we also heard that, you know, it was important that we continue to close the learning gap and that we continue to work towards a rigorous curriculum, and that we didn't, you know, just sell our students short. That we would continue to do those things. So it was balancing a flat budget and still trying to achieve those things. So more data about that you need to have. You need to know this because you're going to make some decisions later on about staff, right, and enrollment. So what I tried to provide was 3 sections: an elementary, a middle, and a high school enrollment history over the last 10 years, and give you an idea in numbers, right? Can you get that? Will that go back up on the screen? Can we get that back up on the screen? No?
what's that? This?
This, it was up.
Yeah, I can put it
Okay.
on the screen if you want.
And so, using those, that information, you need to understand that. So what decreases we've seen, and I used 10-year history, also looked at, we get an annual report from NESDEC, and I'll show you that in a minute, and we also have the Davis report that you did back in 2019. So if you flip your page to page 7, you'll see where our current enrollment is, what we're predicting for next year, what our projected enrollment would be for next year at each grade level, give you an idea what the Davis report suggested, and what the most recent NESDEC report, which came in 2024, so it's fairly recent. We give them data every year. They look at housing stats, and information that we can put together for them, and then they have a formula they use, and that's how they came up with their numbers. So you can see that we have had some decreases in enrollment. Just kind of looking if there's any questions on that enrollment piece. Brenda, you look like you were puzzled.
I'm puzzled because the Davis report and the NESDEC show increases, don't they? I'm looking at,
Davis report
The
does.
Davis report. should
Well,
have-
I'm-
The Davis report did, but that's why I
I just
said.
went to grade 3 because it's, you know, the best. But anyway,
Yeah,
in
and
grade
unfortunately,
3,
they were off, as you can see.
yeah, but even NESDEC went up to goes up to 253.
But we're higher overall than NESDAQ.
Right.
Okay,
Um,
yeah, that's true, okay.
I mean, the Davis report was done prior to
Right,
COVID, so
right.
there's been a lot of changes.
I think it's a good example of how difficult it is to
Yeah.
give you a
can't
projected
predict people.
enrollment. So I kind of look at what do we have, what are they thinking that we might happen? I have to think about any future building and construction in the community. It's not an easy call. So when I give you those projected numbers, it's a sort of a culmination of a lot of factors to help put a number down, and it's, as you can see, it's variable. Who would have thought, you know, 2 years ago, we had 45 kids from Deerfield. This year, we have 25, right? So there's a change. So we have seen a decline.
25 incoming freshmen.
Incoming freshmen,
from
and we
Deerfield.
anticipate that for this coming year as well as will be now sophomores. So there'll be 2 classes of 25. But the year before that, it was like 40, 45. So, are you good with that? I know that's a lot, but, and you know, what you have in your, next to you and I gave to you, so it has a lot more detail. So this is kind of a resource for you. It's all the real detail about class sizes and what's happening at the high school, what are the numbers at the high school, what is the numbers at Career and Technical Center. So I'm not walking through that. We did present this to the instructional committee. They've already seen it, and we walked through it. But I wanted you to have that as a resource in terms of numbers of students and what we're doing. So it's there for you. So, you know, we looked, and when we sat down to look at the budget, you know, what are those things that drive the budget, right? Well, you know that. It's around staff, right? 76%, 76.3% of our budget is driven by salaries and benefits. I mean, that's, you know, over 3/4 of your budget, of that, those numbers that Jack just gave you is pretty significant when you think about it, 3/4. We anticipate salaries increasing over the 25 budget is somewhere around 2.2% increase, and benefits will be estimated to increase around 3.4. So you can see we'll have additional increases that don't represent a flat budget, you know. I mean, those are contracted, negotiated collective bargaining agreements, so that's where we're at with that. And again, they're the same every year. I've been doing this for a long time, and it's the same thing. It's increases in contracts, it's increases in insurances, it's special education, and certainly debt service. You know, and why is it debt service? Is because you made decisions to do an HVAC system at the high school, so you now have a bond and a debt in order to pay that project. So that's why it's one of those items that will vary. So those are our challenges when we're doing the budget. Those are things we really can't control. We really, really can't. I mean, we can negotiate and we work hard at that, but you know, we still have to remain competitive. Concord, as you know, this year, we, with the exception of 2 special education positions, we've been able to fill every position of our teaching position. You know, and I know there are a lot of other districts that were not able to fill regular classroom positions because they didn't have they did not have the interest in their district. But we were able to fill all the positions. We're still struggling, as you know, with our support staff being educational associates. That's one area that we continue to struggle, but they've made a great dent in that and reducing that number down to
13, maybe?
Yeah, so we were 12 or 13 this last, I think I reported that out to you. So we're close to that. That's pretty good considering the number that we have. We have 180, was it 180 paras, ed associates and program assistants?
183,
Yeah, 183.
183, so to be down only 13, I think that we've tried to fill those positions too, so. But it's still a challenge. I'm going to let Jack talk a little bit about the insurances since he deals with. Oh, go ahead, Brenda.
I'm sorry, just a quick question on our paras. I was thinking just in my head about the different responsibilities that different para positions provide. Do we offer sort of a scale to our paras if you're providing nursing or sort of an LNA component to a student? Is that a different fee than we would say someone who's giving education versus someone who is on almost a full-scale nurse?
Three categories.
There are 3.
There's 3
okay.
categories. There's the educational assistant, as you said. Then there's the program assistant, and then there's an LNA. So there's 3 categories, licensed nursing assistant.
And
So there's 3
where-
categories within the bargaining unit.
Where would paras who work with behavioral students, where do they fall in that?
Depending on the program and depending where they are. There's sometimes there's program assistants, sometimes there's educational assistants. They're all eligible within the law to be able to put them with students in need.
And
It varies by need.
different pays go
yeah.
with those different positions?
Some EAs go with those different things. Sometimes it's an LNA if there's a medical need. It depends on the student and what the team determines the level of service needed is.
And if a student needs a nurse, I think we have had
Yep.
some of that falls under the teachers
If
and
it-
nurses CBA, right?
If it's an RN, it's a nurses. If it's an LPN, it's unaffiliated. We sometimes unaffiliated or contract those when it's an LPN, which is kind of the middle road. Then we have more, the addition of adding our healthcare coordinator and a nurse practitioner a few years ago has really helped us with that because now she's able to look at a case and a kid and say, what is the level of care and consult with that team. It's been a much needed and better system for us.
Okay, great, thank you.
Jack, you want to do insurances?
Yeah. One other thing, that there also is an additional amount they get for RBT certification. So, yeah. Okay, so for the insurances, the first one you see health insurance, that we got a rate, if you remember at the finance committee at the end of January, we had our consultants come in and present. We were running at 103% utilization, and that impacted our renewal rate for the coming year. So our insurance rates are going up 13.4%, so that is reflected in this budget. Dental rates are going up between 2 and 3%, 2% for single, 3 for two-person, and 3% for family. Okay. Workers' comp is going up 12%, and you can, if you go to the next page, on page 8, we put in the comments there from our provider for the rationale for that. Not shocked by that. The life, we have another year commitment of a level fund, same rates. So what drives those increases is whether an employee is eligible for life or not, because of probationary periods and various agreements and when they become benefits eligible. The disability is a flat rate as well, but that goes up as the salaries go up. Okay? And we report this stuff every month to them, so that's how we get our invoice. And then for property and liability, that's going up 13.6%. It wouldn't shock me if we start seeing some of that for a little bit longer based on what's going on. We did have the buildings reassessed this year. They did come out and do that. And it is costing more to repair things. So.
The vendor, the health insurance, how much in dollars is the 1.8% to rebuild the reserve? If you don't have it, you can.
Yeah, no, I'll have to get that back to you on that.
Mr. Richards?
Yes, I just wanted to, for the benefit of people that are watching and for my personal benefit, so I just looked at all of our insurances, probably the biggest one being health insurance, going up 13.4%, and the rest either, if we're lucky, flat and going up 13. Going up 13, 2 to 3%, 12%. How do benefits only get increased 3.43%? Right? These are all big number increases. And then you come back, and then prior to that, you just said that, you know, the FY25 budget's benefits increase is estimated to be 3.43%.
Yep.
So could you explain how you get from 13.4 to 3.43?
Yep. So obviously you have people that, when we created the budget, what we do is we copy the actual live data in November into this year. Then we put everybody back to their entitlement. And you have open positions, you have people that retire. So all that shifting. Obviously, new people coming in also pay more for the plans. We also have more diverse plans. Now, we've added the orange plan within the last 2 years. So when all that stuff breaks out, hence why you're seeing 3.43% on all the benefits, which includes also course reimbursements are in there, unemployment, life, disability. So when you take the overall, it's 3.43, but health might be at like 5% because of the plan.
So following up on that,
Yeah.
and the thing that concerns me the most is, where does it go in the next budget, the next fiscal year? Because I'm seeing a lot of increases. I know that there's some changes, but I know it's early for you to forecast, but are we looking at 3.43% this year because it's going to be 5.8% next year? Or do you anticipate that it will stay 3.43 as, kind of an estimate or a flat going forward? I know I'm asking you to look into the future, but you know what you've pulled from one place and another. You know the trends in, plans that people are taking and not. I'm asking you where that trend is going.
I think it's going to stabilize because more and more users are picking what the cost of the premium is to them, not what the plan benefit is.
Okay.
So that's where we're trying to capitalize. I think I mentioned in that finance meeting, if we had done nothing last year, I'll reinforce, that our health insurance on the employee side, if we still had the old green plan, this budget would be $4.2 million higher for our side if we had done nothing.
Okay.
But making the changes, working with the board, negotiating, we've been able to try to offset some of the, being at a much higher level than maybe other districts.
So it's only 3.43% because of some of the aggressive actions that your office and the board has taken in the last.
Without a doubt.
Okay.
Without a doubt, when I go to these school care meetings and I hear districts still on these green plans, I am blown away.
Jack, keep aggressive.
Yeah. The family plan for that green plan is $55,000. Our orange plan family is $34,000. So you imagine paying $21,000,
Yeah, I'm aware at
So-
how much those plans have gone up, and if you take a
This
look
is-
at the annual cost.
yeah. We've been aggressive and a lot of credit to.
For board members who aren't on negotiations or finance and haven't seen, it would be good to just give people copies of the different plans we offer, the estimated number of people who are on each plan and the cost
Yep.
to them and to us of each plan.
Yep.
Just so people have that background when we're talking green versus orange 2.0.
Yeah, it's taken me 3 years to figure out what all that means.
Yeah, what we'll do is obviously this is 1.0,
Got
but this
there
is a
eventually,
dynamic
yeah.
document. We're going to update and add that into the appendices so that you can see
It doesn't help
that.
if they constantly are changing the colors, so it's hard to keep.
Now they're adding numbers, yellow
Now we have numbers,
2.0.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
2.0 and-
yeah,
yeah.
the thing that strikes me is that, people are gonna look and say, wow, 3.43, 4%, those are all high numbers, those increases, but in actuality, they aren't compared to the increases we're seeing in our costs and potentially could see in costs if we had readjusted where we are. I'd like them to be lower, but
Yeah.
I understand where we are. Thank you.
The property and liability, what is our claim history recently? Is this being driven by our claims that are there or just overall claims in the market? And my
Both.
both. And then, so my follow-up question to that, are there things that Primax has recommended that we do to reduce our exposure or to potentially reduce our rates that we can do and should be looking at?
Yes, they do.
And are we doing those things?
Yes.
Or are they in our budget?
Yes.
So this is we're doing everything they want us to do, 22% increase.
Besides slips and falls, it's hard.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's challenging. But inspections that they recommend, trainings that they provide, signage that they recommend. I know Matt does a lot with the playgrounds, and we confer with them if we have something that is potential risk and what we can do to mitigate it. They do help us. And it's important to note that Primex is a risk pool. It's a municipal risk pool. So they have a reinsurer over and above that, but there's a lot of municipalities and school districts that are involved in there, and that it's self-funded pool. So it is a unique thing as far as for here. We did look at shopping it out several years ago to look at the commercial market. Not worth it. Absolutely not worth it. So,
And Jack, is our rate increase, I see where it says wildfires, hurricanes, things like that. So the wildfires that we've seen out west,
floods,
the
hurricanes.
floods and,
gonna
yeah, all
impact
of
us.
that drives our insurance up as well.
Because the reinsurer. So once we hit certain levels, then it goes to a reinsurer. And the reinsurer are the ones that absorb those big claims. And they're pushing down those
There's not
those
much, there's
rates.
nothing we can do about that.
No, no.
You probably experience that same thing at
Yeah.
with your homeowners.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
do.
Exactly.
We've all experienced that, right? The homeowner's insurance has gone up. I asked that question. Nobody broke into my house, at least not tonight. And my insurance goes up. Question I asked, and it was related to wildfires and hurricanes, and I'm paying for that.
And they said property reinsurance rates by Primex paid on behalf of its members have increased 22% this year.
And that includes inflation in building materials as well,
Sure.
right? And
Yeah.
building costs.
Car repairs, because cars, what's the average car now? 48 grand, 47,000 or something I was reading. Yeah. Okay.
So you want to talk quickly about contracts?
Yep.
Yeah, these
So
are
we-
our CBAs.
We put in the CBAs and kind of where they stand at the moment. Obviously, what you negotiate will affect your budget. And if at any one point you need to get an update as a board, we can go into non-public under negotiations and update you on where things stand. But you can see each of the groups and where they're at for this year, and up this year are administrators, which that should be I apologize, a star. Teachers and nurses are up next year, as I note there. That's the one negotiating next year so far. You have instructional assistants up this year, admin assistants, they're good till 27. But you could see that what the increase is to their base rate, their base wages. And then transportation, which we're negotiating now. The custodians that I have negotiated, but that one's been completed. You voted on that last month. And then maintenance transportation, they're good till 2027, 2%. And the tutors are up this year. We're beginning that. And food service is not in the general fund, but they're out till 2027. And then unaffiliated are to be determined. Okay, so that gives you an idea of where we have 9 bargaining units, and then everybody else falls into that unaffiliated group. Okay?
Good with that? Then, John, you want to introduce your special ed, where this is an important part of the budget. As you know, that's where we're going to see the increases.
So pages 9 and 10 are pages 9 and 10 are where you're going to look on this. I think that I want to, as a caveat, I think special education, student services as a whole is a lot of services for students. Our staff does an amazing job every day with our students, and it is a job that takes a lot of heart and a lot of work every day. So I commend them when I start talking about this population. So you'll see in my budget it reflects an increase in where we have a notable increase in both our autism populations and our medically needs students. And with that comes, a cost, because there's a lot of people and personnel involved in that. But if you look at some national, some stats nationally, and both here or even in New Hampshire, I just did some looking around about this, because I said, where are we when it comes to this? And it used to be, if you look back in 2001, it was 1 in 250 children. So it used to be a very low incident disability, what we call it. Now we're talking, like the last stats that came out was in 2023 was 1 in 36. And they're saying, like, I was reading about it last week, and some of the New Hampshire stats came out. They're saying it could be 1 in under 20 now, students identified with autism. So you'll see that, it really has increased for us. And I'll get to some data in a minute. But in our previous budgets, we continued to adjust and look at our staffing, and we have increased staff for our educational assistants. I came forward and done that. And it's time to look at our related services a little bit, because our speech and OT definitely needs have increased because of these populations have a lot of motor difficulty, a lot of speech difficulty, a lot of communication difficulty. So with that, we have seen increases in our caseloads to over 50 for some of these service providers. So it's time to address that. And what I'm proposing in this budget is I have a 3-day-a-week occupational therapist at the middle school. I want to bring her to a full-time, so it's a 0.4 increase, and then hire a certified occupational therapy assistant, a CODA, district-wide, and a speech-language pathologist district-wide to help place these individuals around the district where we have the most needs. Instead of hiring them per building, it's the most needs that we'll be able to direct and share them across the district. Then, of course, transportation costs are going to increase, and I'm going to address that later in our van proposal. But just some numbers for you to show the increase. I've been talking a lot about this at the board level, but it's over the last 3 years. You know, we were 720 overall in 2022-23 to last year 799. This year, 849. It continues to grow our population of students. Good news is we have had well over 150 referrals to our preschool the past 3 previous years. They are starting to subside a little bit right now. We're having a little less referral at the 3-year-old level, which we thought would happen after coming out of COVID and coming out of some of the things that happened. We are seeing that trend, and that's a trend that's actually across New Hampshire. We're seeing
That they're getting services at 1 and 2.
Yes, there's
now
early services,
before-
but just there's not as many kids that are coming off as developmentally delayed. We're not
Yep.
seeing the amount as we have been seeing come through to our doors over the last 3 years. We were 175, 165, 180 last year. It's like the numbers have been huge for our referrals in the preschool, and those are starting to subside a little bit, which is a good trend to watch. So that's good news, I
You
think,
don't even think about
in some
babies
ways.
then.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Didn't interact.
Yeah, so you'll see our top, our top 4 disabilities are other health impaired, specific learning disability, and developmentally delayed and autism. It used to be used to see speech and language impairment much higher. Used to see SLD, speech and language disability, much higher. Now other health impaired, development delayed, and autism are really creeped up that chart. And those numbers are very impacted students that have a lot of needs. Some of that has to do with, and Superintendent Murphy and I talk about this often, that our identification of autism has changed in the last 5 years. When they call it the DSM-5 came out and identified what different disabilities are, no longer has categories of autism. It's autism. It's a bigger range of autism is what it is. So that has affected some of it, and we have a lot more early intervention. So we are identifying a lot earlier than we used to. So.
Ms. Higgins?
I have a special ed sort of question. In younger students, isn't developmental delay, doesn't that sort of umbrella speech and language?
So development delayed means in one of the functionings, of life, that there's a delay in that. So it could be communication, it could be motor, it could be ability to grasp concepts. It's a big wide range of what it is.
Because I just seem to recall.
It's a catch-all.
And I know
is
with
what it
Gracie, she ended up, once she had her 3 years and she was in elementary school, it was speech and language.
Right.
And when she was 3, it was a developmental.
Yes, it could be speech and language, it could be communication, speech and language.
Thanks, John.
Okay.
You want to talk about that van proposal? Kind of goes along with
Sure.
your programs.
Sure. Student services, as I said, as a whole, a lot of programs, a lot of needs. Homeless, fosters, special education. As you know, there's been a shortage in drivers. You've heard this. We've talked about it. I brought this to finance. We really, when we go outside to contracts, they're up to $600 a day to transport one of our children. It really is a very not cost-effective measure, but by law, reminding people that under all of these laws that I live with every day, we have to provide an education. we have to transport. Those are things that we have to give them access to their education.
And we want to.
And we want to. So that's just a reminder. So, so in this, in doing so, we'll be about 1.3 million over this year in our transportation costs.
Brings it up to 2 million roughly, right? We have
Yeah, because
700.
we budget
Total.
between all of 650 for just the out of district.
Yeah.
And then when you're over 1.3, you're almost 2 million.
Okay.
Yep, and that's in costs for transportation. So I did a proposal, I get finance, so what I'm proposing is 20 passenger vans dedicated to student service transportation in general. These will not require a CDL license. I think one of the board members mentioned it earlier. I think Ms. Campbell mentioned earlier that it gives a nice opportunity for people who come in non-CDL, an opportunity to grow in their profession. So it's kind of a nice opportunity there. These are 8 to 14 passenger vans, allow us to onboard drivers sooner and create that pathway. So on page 11, it's kind of a breakdown of the cost, the one-time cost to get us up and get us rolling. Excuse the pun. But then once we're there, there'll be an annual cost to that too, and that is really laid out here, which is about, it's about $1 million to start up, and then $1 million per year to get that going. And then once we're up and going and rolling, I've had a lot of conversations with neighboring districts around this, one in particular that really talk about, can we share some of this cost, and can we either do partnership in some of the purchasing, or partnership down the road where we bill and they pay us at a more cost rate versus $600 a day. I think that's what the thought is around doing this.
How many students does this encompass?
So this would take care of right now all the students that we currently have in these programs that are running.
And roughly how many are we transporting daily now, do we know? Outside of like our regular school buses?
You had it.
Yeah, I have in my proposal. If you give me a minute, it's like 176, I believe, is the number. I
Is
want
the
to pull off
total
my
number
head.
to transport?
Yeah, total number to transport.
That we're paying, that's the number that brings us?
No,
to
that's what we
2 million.
transport every day.
Okay.
So the total number that, if you're asking the total number that we now contract out to,
Yeah.
I'd have to work with Terry Karate on that number,
Okay,
because it
thank
comes
you.
through his office and does that. I don't have that exact number.
Yeah.
I know that he has seven,
I think it's 60.
60.
It's where we're running about.
About 60?
Yeah,
Okay, thank
The
you.
last sheet I saw.
Because you would see the bills that come in for that, so it's 60
Oh, I
on
see the
that.
bills.
Yeah,
Okay, so it's 60 that is,
yeah.
okay.
About, yeah.
And is that, this kind of piggybacks on that, so would these vans replace the smaller buses?
Not necessarily, no. They would, these vans would be, in addition to those.
Well, I guess I'm wondering if we have roughly 60 students that we are transporting daily, do we need 20 buses?
That's the question. We could start smaller, and I think Jack said that in the beginning. when we
20
started.
vans, I'm sorry, yes, 20
Yeah,
vans.
yeah, we could start smaller and do that.
Because there, how many passengers, there, how, did I see
The vans are
12?
primarily to take care of out-of-district placement that we rent out now.
Yeah, even if-
Not current kids that get on a bus in Concord and go to a Concord school.
We
Right.
do have ones in town.
We do have ones in town.
Or that we also.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because of lack of drivers.
Right.
We do right now. So to answer the question, it depends on the ride. So it's, and ideally, it's not, that math isn't that simple to say, okay, well, there's 16 divided by 6, that's how many vans you need. No, because some go out to the seacoast, some go from Manchester to pick up our students who may have been homeless, who now live in Manchester. We pick them up, we bring them to
Right,
Concord
and
every
I
day
guess
and bring them
what I'm
back.
seeing is a fleet. How many are in a fleet? What is a fleet of vans? I think this is
20 is what
20.
I proposed.
So it's a 20 passenger vans?
Yeah, 20, 15, 20, 8 to 14 passenger vans.
Okay.
Ms. Meeker and then Ms. Robinson?
So I just want to kind of center us a little bit, because we've reached a point in our executive summary where this is a negotiable
Yeah.
proposal, right? So we've been talking about things that we don't really have a lot of control over. So this is just the first night. I appreciate that the proposal is here. I appreciate the questions, because I think that this is, you know, what do we do? Do we get 20? Do we get 10? Do we do none of it, none at all? And then we budget 1.5 million for out-of-district transportation for next year. So I just want to remind everybody that we have time to talk about this stuff. And I think questions are good, and also if you don't have answers tonight, I think that's, for me, totally fine.
Yeah. My question was just going to be around presentation of numbers. I'm more than willing to invest in anything that's gonna save the district money and keep employees in the district as opposed to contracting out services. So I think the next time we visit this conversation, it would be really helpful for the public to see what an investment in vans can look like for a reduction in contracted services. So if we're putting up, you know, let's say we go with all 20, just for the sake of conversation, and we've got that, you know, $1 million one-time investment, what would that mean to no longer have to contract out? And that's probably further into
No,
this
that's
document.
great. I just want to kind of piggyback on Kara's point.
Yep.
I think the next session that we have is around instructional. It includes curriculum instruction and student services. So
Okay.
the details of some of these things
That's all
will
gonna
be,
show up then.
will be put out to you. Like, how many students do we take out of district? How many are in district that we have
Gotcha.
to contract out for? What is that? A number that Jack gave, $800,000 on contracted service, you know,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
kind of thing. We will have that detail. We didn't think tonight we would do that with you, because we'd be here till midnight.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. I appreciate the hard work.
Yeah, no, go ahead. No.
Just again for future, when we do dive into this, I am very eager to see if we can generate income. I think I said that a few times. Is there a potential to generate income through doing this? Collaborating with other districts, offering this service to other districts. Can we do something with these to work with other districts to help transport their kids at a fair cost?
Great.
I love it.
Great.
I'm gonna move on, if
Yep.
that's
Yep.
okay.
Yep.
So,
Please do.
we just wanted to remind you what capital expenditures are and what that happens and what it does. The debt service, summer projects, and contributions to facilities drive those expenditures, so just so you know. The next section, I asked Jack to do this, but just list all of the projects that we still have bonds out on, and how much you have right now in bonds that the district is responsible for. And I asked Jack, I think the next question is, what's our rating? If you look up on the top of page 12, you'll see our rating for Moody, and what that equates to. And then I asked him, what is our capacity, is another word. What can we bond up to? What's that number, Jack?
Like 350 million.
So we could bond up to 350, right, million. So, I mean, not that we want to
We're
do
not going
that.
to.
That was not the point. We're not going to do that.
I'm just telling you,
I
we're
just
not
want-
going to.
Rules
No,
for
but I
everyone.
want to put perspective into, you know, you look at something and you say, oh my gosh, 5 million, whatever, you know. It's just the perspective of what you are capable of, because you do have an excellent rating, you know, so. I'm going to turn it over to Matthew, because he's going to talk a little bit about projects.
Well, actually, on Ms. Meeker's point, I think summer projects is probably a separate discussion, other than say that that is a dollar.
Right, but it
Value
will
and-
be in your budget.
Yeah, but we can talk about some of
Yeah,
that.
We can
okay.
save questions.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go for it.
Okay, we're going to jump to personnel then, okay? Is that all right? Is that where you want to go?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So I mentioned already, 76% of our budget is based on our staff, and they drive that budget. I have put in here for your review, on page, my book 14, a class size, your current policy, and what the instructional committee came up with for a policy. And we said we would delay this discussion until, because it had merit in terms of a budget development. So that's there for you to review. But I do want you to know that in our budget that we are proposing to you, we will be asking you to consider $973,900 in reduction in staffing based on our retirements, vacancies, and the enrollment projection. So please know that we went through all of the schools up through high school and determined that we could, without hurting any positions, we could reduce our expenditures in personnel by that number,
And
973,000.
that equates to roughly how many positions that we're not filling?
Well, there's a combination of some classroom positions, as well as some support positions. For instance, I'll give you an example, some office personnel, program assistants that haven't been filled, as well as even a teaching position that had not been filled, so that's where they came from. So figure 5 teaching positions and some support staff, okay? And we will detail that out when we go to the next meeting during the instruction piece, which is coming up. I don't really want to talk about the next item, but we certainly want to talk about the superintendent search. And so that's in there, just so you know. And Jack broke that out. We did consult and get a number, an approximate number for you. Kim, you want to speak quickly about curriculum, just so people...
Yeah, so this will be a frugal year. We already bought and purchased our math program. We don't have an intended purchase for curriculum materials until the following year, which will be a big lift if we do K through 12 ELA. So I would say there's very, very minimal impact to the point where it's almost not worthy of a conversation, other than last year, over the summer, we had $90,000 worth of proposals from staff to work on summer curriculum, and we had a budget line item of $35,000. And so when we get to this next Monday, I can talk about asking for a small increase so that we can accommodate more summer curriculum work activities. But otherwise, you can plan on not a significant increase at all.
Okay. Jack's going to jump in on food service on page 15.
So we give you some information from last year of how many breakfasts and lunches were served. We also, for the last couple of years, have received a grant from the USDA for supply chain and help mitigate that post-COVID. That has all dried up. We've gone through and looked at the operating budget of the food service program, and we're expecting that the general fund is going to have to support that by $112,657. And then, in addition, we're putting a transfer of up to $55,000 for the cover outstanding meal debt that we may potentially not collect.
55, you said?
Yes. So that's up to $162,000 that's going to be, the general fund will need to support the program.
Yeah. Can I just say quickly, my family is part of that problem right now, in that my kiddo keeps ordering lunch without telling me and racking up a huge deficit until I open up the app and go,
Last
"You're
night it was my
$30
kid."
in the hole."
I listed you in the back, no.
Thank you. Everyone can think, but I
Everyone
think
on the
this
audience.
serves as another reminder to the community that please double check your kids' balance on their food, because when we close those books, you will not have the opportunity to take care of your debt, and it will have to be absorbed by the general fund. So my own due diligence is to put some money on my kid's card. Please do that on your own if you can afford to, and if you can't, please look into free and reduced price lunch.
Thank you, Sarah.
Jack, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Could you just speak a little bit as to the 5,665 lunches we provide to St. John's?
Yeah, so the agreement with them they have to come in at zero. So they pay us a fee.
Okay.
They cover their lunches. They're pretty good with their student debt.
Okay, so we're not losing money on that, they're.
It's even,
They're
yeah.
even out. We're
And they
just-
have to pick it up. So we do an analysis for them and say they have to true it up, and the school has to eat the cost if it's different.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. That's been going on for years. But,
It's in here, I
We'll
just
see.
wanted to make
Yeah.
it clear for
Yeah.
anyone who has a question,
yeah,
including me.
okay.
Technology, Jack?
Sure. So, as you know, in 2012, when we opened the elementary schools and started the one-to-one program, that continues today. So, in this budget, it's fairly light from an equipment standpoint this year, but I did put a little forecasting out for next year. So next year, we'll be replacing teacher and staff laptops. That's for about 210, and then 380,000 for Chromebooks for 3, 6th, and 9th. 3rd, 6th, and 9th. And what happens is they get those books, they keep them for the time that they're there, and so it's just a rolling track. So every year, 3, 6th, and 9th. And then every couple years, you see next year, we replace the iPads for K-1, 2.
And Jack, we are not putting any money aside into the technology trust fund this year?
No, I think there's
In
a balance of
anticipation of that
200,000, but yeah, I didn't use any and I didn't put any away. We try to maintain 600,000. It's probably not enough, but that's what we're trying to do. So in this budget is 600,000 to cover this.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
I am looking at our trust fund page on 18 and 19.
Yep. Am I wrong?
And-
Does it have 200 in it?
It has 218,000 in the trust fund.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's not 600,000 though, right?
No, in the general fund, there's 600,000 because you have
Oh, okay.
590,000 in expenses.
Right.
One thing that we left it at 600 for, we don't know what the tariffs are going to do.
Okay.
We did call for one of the programs to buy through Perkins to buy laptops. Price went up 20% already. So
Yeah.
we're trying to hold tight and see,
Like a whole
you know,
community
is it one of those things and then it settles back down? And we were thinking, I think we
know.
talked to you about maybe taking proactive, but they've already started to up it. So we'll keep an eye on it. But what I mean by 600, we maintain the 600, and if we're less than that year, we put the differential away. And then when we're above it, we would pull out of that trust fund.
But next year, we're going to be at a higher level because we'll have 200,000 in it. You'll have 600,000 that you anticipated, but we have a $1.2 million planned
Replacement.
Right,
replacement
exactly.
cost.
That's why I'm saying
So
it's
that means
probably
next
not
year's
enough.
budget's gonna go up in
Yeah.
technology.
Yeah.
bake sale.
Isn't that, I've heard that.
Yeah.
the way of
When you look
funding
at the
in past,
one-on-ones,
yes.
the amount of cybersecurity, because I mentioned in here, there's 2 cybersecurity tools that we have
Yeah.
that have ended from ESSER. That's almost 50 grand between those 2 products. But the guys are like, it's necessary.
I was gonna say ransom
Oh,
is
yeah.
more in
We're not
Bitcoin,
Yep.
Yeah. Student
so
data is
I think that's money well
Even
spent.
apps on people's phones. We could talk about that later.
So the next area is is everybody good with that? I'm sorry if grants, they're listed, I'm not gonna go through them, you hear about them all the time, so.
Yeah.
They're there, please take a look at it. You know, again, we put in a little positive note, those 2 significant mental health grants. We got grants on LEAD, together, the project LEAD, which is the DOJ, right? We got about $500,000 there for safety, remember, in our buildings. The Healthy Meals Incentive Program, for the CHS lunch program, which is kind of fun, you know, we did some diverse foods for the kids. And then, of course, our rebate program around the electric buses. Just a quick update. I don't anticipate, by the way, any significant increases in our entitlements. I'm worried that we may see decreases.
Yeah, I was
So I'm
gonna-
kind of keeping an eye on it, but we're at this point, it's still very much at least I'm in the dark. There may be some insiders, but I understand they're over there and they're looking at the Department of Ed now and in Washington, and
Yeah.
we'll wait.
What
Yeah.
percentage of these grants or what amount is
Well,
federally
you know,
funded? And state funded?
The ones that have been awarded, that we have, they can't take that back. It's the entitlements that they vote on to expend Title I funds or Title II or III or IV. Those are all really good grants for us. I think Ellen put a number in here. I thought she did. Maybe she told me, but she did have a number of the total. I'll get that the next time.
6.9
Oh, yeah.
million.
Yep.
Projected is revenues of 6.9 million. It's in page 17, it's about the third or fourth paragraph down. So, that's a chunk of change that really has helped us with a lot of programs. We also put in community partners. We wanted you to know, we work with a lot of folks in the community. They are great. Our booster clubs help us at the high school and the middle school, supporting our kids, and our PTOs are awesome. They run all kinds of programs for the kids and fun events and popcorn and whatever else they do, right? Such great partners. And I listed some more down there, just so you know that we continue to work with our partners and agencies. I'm gonna let Jack jump into revenues and look at the trust funds, which Jim just brought up.
Yeah. So we anticipate this being a challenge, hence why we have presented the budget we have and propose using your trust funds to mitigate that. As you've probably been on here long enough, realize whenever we do have the biannual budgets, we have tried to use those trust funds to leverage in anticipation that the state passes its budget and there's something to mitigate in October. Fortunately, you have the ability to adjust. So if there's new revenue, we've tried to make it so we don't get the heart monitor, jumps. So in smoothing that out. So if after everything settles out in October, you may put some of this money back and then smooth it in. Part of the thing we're thinking, considering the courts and the adequacy, are they going to do something that would help mitigate it? Don't know. So we didn't anticipate any of that here. If anything, you see the adequacy going down. So as of what they've given us so far. But if that all changes, we've tried to make this a budget that you have flexibility without us coming to you and saying the number's double what we've given you or more. Okay? These are your trust funds. I'm going to back up one other thing. We mentioned in here the CRTC, and the state usually picks up 75% of the tuition, and then the local district pays 25%. Well, the state is only paying 56% of their 75. So what we do is we balance bill the districts, and that is becoming a surprise for them because that number is getting higher and higher and higher. In what you'll hear in more detail is we're proposing 20 fewer kids, which is 200,000 in revenue to the CRTC, because it's potentially reduced number of students because of busing and their budget's going up, as you're starting to see in the paper. And if they're going up and they have to reduce something, they may say, we're not gonna, transport or offer that. And we and proposed a 5% reduction in enrollment. Could be worse. So
Jack, can you explain to me for my own understanding, because I understand that like the bucket of dollars that CRTC or CTE centers use for a lot of the work that they do is Perkins grants, correct?
sure, yeah.
So what's the role of a Perkins grant in offsetting tuition? Is it in that situation, it doesn't even
Now
touch
it's
it?
used to modify programs, expand programs.
Build
and
capital
usually it has
facility, yeah, okay, all right.
Materials.
materials.
Yeah, so it's not, you can't spend it on kids, but you
No.
can spend it on the things that they need.
Right.
to learn.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
if you had a program, I think you'd keep a staff member for 3 years. You can do a waiver to get to 4. Like
Yeah.
specifically, I remember like the theater and production, when we did that came in through the Perkins grant.
Yeah.
And we kept that and then expanded a little bit. So
Okay,
new
thank you.
programs.
I appreciate that.
There's more to come on this because, in fact, my understanding is that you cannot cap the number of students who elect to go to a career and technical center.
I was gonna say, you
Yeah,
can't
it's
tell a
you can't
kid that
do
they can't
So
do it.
How they're deciding to cap a student and say we're going to send, one district is now telling us that they're going to send 30 less students. I don't know how that can happen because my understanding is that they are not allowed to do that by the way the regulations around CTE. So we're watching that and monitoring that. So I'm excited. I'm going to bring some more data to you because I think it's important to you. I've been told this evening, I'll let Pam know tonight, that the governor will be visiting our Concord Career and Technical Center. I think Concord has had a strong voice on the planning that's happening over there, the committees. Jack serves, and Terry is serving, and also Ann. And so she will be visiting our center. So this is a wonderful opportunity for you all to be able to share your thinking with her when she visits.
Ms. Meeker?
When we have this conversation more in depth, I'm curious to know if the state has sort of surprised us with a reduction in contributions, and the result is for us to have fewer enrollments, which is a monetary hit. Is there room, or have we considered essentially, adding to our contribution to keep these students coming, to relieve some of the expense from the sending district so that they can still send students, like filling in that gap so that we can maintain enrollment? Is that, I don't know if that's a priority, if that's a desire.
Ann and I've had the discussion.
Yeah.
Because there is another fund that they have, and can it be used? I was actually having that conversation with her last Friday on the way to Pat's Peak.
Yeah.
So more to discuss on that.
Okay,
But yes,
excellent.
we
Thank
have. Okay. So these are your trust fund balances, is what they're projected. I do want to highlight one thing on your facilities purchase and renovation expendable trust fund, which is the 5th one down. We're proposing, as part of your 5% you've been maintaining since 2005, putting in 2.677 million into the fund. Now, notice that balance is about 19 million. When you're done your budget process, we have to relieve the outstanding issue of the middle school over at Broken Ground. There's expenditures that you have accrued that we paid, but now I have to reconcile. So there's votes and things that you're going to need to do to take care of that. That balance will come down. And then we'll have to figure out what the next steps are now that it's back there. Whether we continue to use that.
Approximate amount,
$3.3 million.
and that wasn't included in the 164 million of the cost of building at the
No.
South Street site.
No.
Yeah, that's just an extra little amount difference between if we had have stayed at the other site and the additional, how more expensive it is to build on South Street.
So what we have to do, and what you
Yeah.
approved on May 6, 2024, you approved a bond, it's called a declaration of intent to reimburse. And what happened was, and was voted on that site, for that site, so as we expended that money, when we went to bond, we would reimburse ourselves. Now we have to go through those expenses and determine what is reimbursable and what is not. Because if it's for that site, like a survey, you can't. Any soil samples, it's not. I've asked the architects to go through and say of schematic design and design development, parts of that are being redone. What can we truly say can carry over to here so I can reimburse, and what can't, because that was solely that site. And those expenses, I can't reimburse. I'm limited on what I can reimburse. What they've given me an indication is the bond attorney is talking about a 5-year limit, the max you can finance something that you're not going to build anymore. It might not make any sense to reimburse ourselves when we're going to pay interest to reimburse ourselves for 5 years.
Yeah.
It just might be just a sunk cost. But we have to go through and pull all that apart after the budget.
So 19.7 million is maybe closer to 16 or 17.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
So that was going to be used to mitigate your upstart. But, all right, so there is the, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm
Finish
good.
it.
All the
Yeah.
trust funds. And then we mentioned the unknowns there at the end, which is the final tax impact will be based on the revenues, your year-end balance. Right now, we have a proposal that you're going to be even about 2.8. Last year, you came at 3.3. Of the 3.3, 500,000 of that was carrying over money from last year. I only have 120 that I'm carrying over from 24. So I factored that in based on how things are trending. I think 2.8 is safe. and hopefully it's a little bit more, and then we can figure that out. But I'm not expecting it to be another, couple million at savings based on how things are running. And then the snow's not helping, by the way. Can you stop that from happening? I know you can stop school, but can you stop the snow
Love
from
it.
happening?
Thank you.
Plowing
Snap
and
your
all.
My
fingers
heart
and
was
summon the
set.
weather, Kathleen.
My heart was set on June 13th. The rest of this book, I'm sure you were wondering if we were going to walk you page by page through this, and that is not the case. So I'm happy to report to you. But this is a breakdown of every significant line and area and function of the budget. So, in your spare time, when you have very little to do,
Tonight by the
During our
fire.
2-hour delays in school.
when you have a
coffee,
2-hour
you can do-
delay, no, I don't think so. Anyway, this is information that you can use to look at what was the budget in '25, what's it proposed in '26, and what's the differential, and you might have questions as you go through that, but this is not something we'll use this as we go through the sections, but this is not something that we need to do. What we talked about tonight is embedded in this.
Yep.
Okay?
There'll be an audiobook version next week.
Who's narrating?
Terry will be doing the reading.
I like the interactive computer version.
If it's
myself.
okay, I'll just.
No.
Nope. I just wanted to highlight a couple things I traditionally do, which as far as your upcoming meetings, where everything's
do that.
posted,
Please do
and
that.
that kind of thing. But and where this is posted, but before I do that, I'll just take you into the back of page, at the very end. Let's start at page 73. First, this explains the history of your expendable trust funds. I remember Ms. Sadowski had said special ed trust, so we put that in there, so you can know what the original motion was and when that was created.
Yeah,
If
that's
you
good
look
stuff.
at page 74, there is apparently HB 1265, which requires us to notify or list all the required salaries of administrators.
Oh, God.
Or should I say senior educational official and the assistant senior educational
They
official?
renamed us.
Yes.
Well, and I was just going to comment as people go through the budget, like the format of the budget doesn't always make sense. It's not like how I would design a budget. I'm sure it's not how Jack would design a budget. It is the format that we are required to use by state law.
The
We don't have a
accounting is
choice in how we.
The financial handbook from 1999.
Two.
That's what you.
Was it 2 or 3?
It's a great
I don't
year.
know. It's Handbook 3 or 4, whatever it's at now.
But it is. So what we've done is these are developed off the A12 report, the report to the state. So we literally just went on the state's website of data that we create. I copied and put the information in here. I have asked Dean to review it and make sure we are compliant with that. If it's not, we'll edit it and we'll produce, we'll update version 1.1,
Yeah,
whatever.
because we totally need
Okay.
to use that time and
The,
resources to duplicate
If I move
information.
on to 76, some of these ones that are blank in here, it's just for us if we fill it in, if we find stuff that we find important for you. That is the tax warrant. You'll see that 7,130,812. When you look in your detail, you'll see state education tax. You're going to see that amount. Notice they don't tell me what percentage it needs to be. They just tell me that's the amount you need to raise the tax. They don't care about anything else. So that's the second part of the education tax. And then here is a history, sorry if that's a little small, we can work to increase it, of the valuations, the city tax going back to 1996. This is on the website, we just went and expanded a little bit. So right now, the local education tax makes up 50.42%. The state education tax makes up 5.67. You see that on that very bottom line, so on. And then if you look, on average, the local rate for the last 10 years has gone up 1.93%. Last 5 years, on average, 1.12%. I'm on page 78. The state rate has gone down 3.68. Last 5 years, 1.07. Overall, the education tax has been 0.96 for 10 year, or 0.61. So, I will just move online and show you on the website where this is. So if you go under Concord School District, Board of Education, Agenda, Minutes, and Video, on the very bottom, there is the document. When I open it, everything that, I'll show you. When you go up to here, so if you want to see the tax rate history, you click it, it takes you right to it. It's It's all clickable. And then up top, if you want to email anybody wants to email about the budget, you click on it. It opens up the email, budget@sau8.org, and it already fills in the subject FY26 budget question.
I mean, it's
says
worth
this at every
bragging
meeting.
about. It's worth bragging
If I
about.
bring back the Happy Meal budget, which is the click, click, click.
Oh, no way. Don't do it.
Oh,
Don't do it.
that's getting.
Can we put it in a more prominent, a less like multi-step
It is.
process in the, okay,
It's on the
great.
homepage, if you click budget.
Great.
It goes to a budget
Mm-hmm.
section.
Thank you.
So why don't I do that? You
Yeah,
tell
why
me.
don't you do that, because Jack
Yep,
doesn't know
right
how
there.
to find it, right?
Right there.
Right.
And then it
Oh.
says right at the top,
Okay, great.
all the materials, so people don't have to know where the budget is versus the other stuff. They can go all to
Great.
one place.
Great.
Yep, so it's
Thank
from the
you.
homepage.
Okay, so we will post everything out there.
Look at our
and then
transparency.
We try, and then let me
And then
go.
look at the dates.
Yep, I'm gonna pull the dates up right now. I did have a PowerPoint ready in the event that we had a short circuit. But we made it through.
Go, sir. Way
So,
to go.
tonight's meeting at 5:45, a Monday, we will talk about those topics there on work session 2. And then, the 19th, work session 3, and work session 4 on the 3rd after the break. And then you have a monthly meeting at 6 PM, so that will be a crash course in revenues and transfers. And whatever information you want, we've taken a lot of notes, we will edit and put in your document. And then on the 5th, you have, at 5:30, you can deliberate, but we expect you to post the budget, because your charter requires 10-day 10-day posting prior to the public hearings.
And that is not our final budget that we're posting.
No.
That's like a sort of a discussion draft for the
Yep.
public.
What you feel recommended to the community to hear their comments on. The one thing I would ask is that you determine, if you can tonight, where you want those public hearings to be. Because I remember when we had it up there, people were talking different, so I took it out. So it just says TBD. If you want to wait till Monday, that's fine.
So last year, we did Beaver Meadow, so I suggest we go back to Millbrook.
Sure.
Sure.
Does that work? Unless, does the Citywide Community Center have streaming?
Yeah, I mean, there's space there.
I mean, does it have
No.
streaming?
Don't know.
No.
I don't think so.
Well, I know, but I was
Oh,
just,
there you
I
go.
was,
You did
Forgot.
have it at Dame School.
Go ahead.
In theory, they have internet connection, but I can't say for certain.
okay, so
The
then
last time we
I would
streamed-
suggest Millbrook. Does
Well,
anyone?
Millbrook, he will film it
Yes.
and then put it up the
Right.
next day.
Right.
He's really good.
Yeah,
quick
no,
at-
I knew that. I was just thinking if they had a hookup like we have here, then
Yeah.
that
We
would
would
make sense.
automatically go there, yeah.
But
Yeah.
So
if
Millbrook
not,
for
we
the
can use
second
our
meeting.
school.
Millbrook second meeting.
And here on the
Yep.
first meeting.
I will.
Here on the
first
first.
I
Okay.
will just
thinking,
say,
Karen?
well, I'm thinking about all the sound issues we have at Millbrook.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
Not that we expect a ton of guests, so I'm sure it'll be fine. But the community center does have better sound. I will say that.
That's true. If we're filming at either location,
Right.
or
We are.
videoing at either location
community
for
center
later,
might
for
just be
tape
nice.
delay,
It's just
we
not
might
doing
have it at this, I'm with Kara, I think I'd have it at.
You want to try, well, let me do
See if
this.
it's
Let me call
available.
over and make sure
Yeah.
that that's available, and let me work on that tomorrow.
And,
How's that?
and what the space would be. I'm not
Yeah.
sure their gym makes sense.
No,
No,
and that will be used.
Performance room.
Yeah.
The room that we used on our meeting, who was
Yes.
it? We had a community
Yes, we had a
meeting there.
community meeting there, and
Yeah,
that
that was
seemed
pretty
adequate.
small.
As
There's a
big as
stage.
this place.
Yeah, the stage one.
Yeah.
So I've had,
All right, so we'll look into that and we can
Yeah, I'll
revisit
get
on
back to you.
Monday.
Yes.
And how much the city might charge us for that before we.
Right. I mean,
They
if
did not
Millbrook
charge
is
us for the
easy-
I
last
think it
one.
goes into
Yeah.
there.
They did not charge us for the
No.
last
Yeah,
one we
well,
had there.
I'm just
Yeah, I'll,
asking.
I,
Yeah, we have
Our
that agreement.
agreement.
yeah.
And I do want to say one thing, because I was going to ask for this, and then I found it on page 2, so thank you. Because this is a living document, as we change versions, you'll see on page 2, it says version 1.0, February 12th,
Yeah.
2025. So anytime you change it, I'd like you to solidify
That's
it
one-
into a
that's what this is
version,
for.
date it, date stamp, and then put it in here.
Yep.
Because we're going to have a bunch of packets. by
And
the
maybe
time
on
this
the
is-
front of
I know,
each of these.
I just wrote it on the front for myself as well, but.
So you want us to edit them and then print new versions for you each
Well,
time?
if you're going to, it'd be nice to have it on the title page. If you're not gonna print it every time.
Yeah.
If you want to tell us where the changes are, we can write them in, and you don't have to print it every time.
But online,
Online.
but online it should,
Right.
should say on the front if we're
Okay.
showing new versions on the
I'll
front.
show you a little sample, because I already got 11 things that I noticed going through it. I'm like, ooh, that's a double 6, that's not right. And
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's amazing.
I Anyway.
it, yeah.
All right.
Fresh
Ms.
eyes.
Higgins?
So I just, it wouldn't be a school board meeting if I didn't tell a story, but my first year on the board, the budget was 75 million. That's what the budget was. So we've, in those 13 years, or however many years it's been, our budget has increased half of the original budget when I was first on the board. That's a lot of money. Anyway, that was just my little fun fact. I must be old. I am.
Yeah,
I'm almost
but-
old enough to collect my socials.
Yeah.
If board members have questions, they should feel free to reach out to Jack. He's very good at explaining the answers that you'd ask. If there's budget questions, you bring the answers back for the whole board, so everyone can see what,
Yep.
questions are, and the public can see those as well. Is there anything else for tonight? Otherwise, I was gonna ask for our non-public.
Just that, you got any questions, want to talk to your elected officials? There they are.
That's right. And maybe, I'm sure this will be written up very well and efficiently, but I do also want to just make sure everybody understands that this is a starting point, that the rate is not finished, that this is for us to consider, and that number very well may change. So-
Well, I hope this was what you had some expectation for.
Yeah,
Not
this is
perfect, but,
great.
we tried to, pull it together that would meet your needs, but it is just the beginning. There's a lot of deliberations ahead of you, so.
Sure are.
I want to thank the folks at the table, because they really have been instrumental. Yeah, they were great. Sometimes they're quiet, but they've been really at the table with us as we, went through this process, so I really appreciate that. And there's some that aren't here tonight, but have been helping us, Ellen, and we have finance person, Alex, and Michelle, who's been really great, so, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I will move that we go into non-public session under RSA A3, Section 91A5, personnel, school records of pupils. Are there any other issues that we need to discuss? No.
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Boucher. That is a roll call vote.
Indeed. Ms. Robinson?
Aye.
Ms. Boucher?
Yes.
Ms. Campbell?
Yes.
Ms. Hastings?
Yes.
Ms. Walsh?
Yes.
Mr. Richards?
Yes.
Ms. Sadowski?
Yes.
Ms. Higgins?
Yep.
And I am a yes.
Great. We will not be coming back except to adjourn, so we're going to allow Concord TV to go home this evening. Thank you very much.